You said something hours ago, maybe even days ago, and your brain is still running it back. The exact words, the tone of their voice, the moment you hesitated before answering. You keep rewriting it, replaying it, rehearsing what you should have said. And the conversation is long over, but your brain never got the memo. If this happens to you, I want you to know something right away. You are not overthinking because you are weak. You are not anxious because something is wrong with you. Your brain is doing this because somewhere along the way, it learned that the wrong words could cost you something important, and it never forgot that lesson. That is what we are going to talk about today. Not just why your brain replays conversations, but why it started doing this in the first place, and what it is actually trying to protect you from. Let me ask you something. When you replay a conversation, does it usually feel like you are solving something? Like if you think about it long enough, you will finally land on the right answer. That feeling is not random. Your brain is doing something very specific. It is scanning the conversation like a security system, checking for threats, reviewing the footage, looking for the moment something went wrong. And here is the part most people never realize. That security system was not installed yesterday. It was built when you were young. In the early years of your life, your brain was doing something extraordinary. It was learning the rules of your world. Not the rules you were taught in school, the unspoken rules, and how the people around you responded when you said the wrong thing, whether expressing yourself was safe, or whether it came with a cost. For some people, the cost was small, a brief frown, a moment of silence. For others, the cost was much heavier. A parent who became cold without warning, a household where the wrong word could shift the entire emotional temperature of the room, or simply an environment where you never quite knew what response you were going to get. Predictability is everything to a developing brain. When the social world around you feels unpredictable, your brain does what it was designed to do. It starts recording more carefully. It starts reviewing the footage after the fact. It starts building a system to catch mistakes before they happen again. And that system, once installed, does not simply turn off when the danger is gone. It keeps running, long into adulthood, long after the people and situations that created it have left your life. Psychologists call this pattern rumination, but that word does not fully capture what is actually happening. Because rumination sounds passive, like something that just happens to you. What your brain is actually doing is active. It is working. It is trying to find closure on something that never fully closed. Here is what closure actually means to your nervous system. Closure is not just an emotional concept, it is a neurological one. Your brain has a strong drive toward resolution. When something feels complete, your nervous system can release it. When something feels incomplete, unresolved, uncertain, your brain keeps the file open. I think of it like a tab in your mind that never gets closed, and conversations that carried emotional weight, those stay open the longest. A conversation where you felt misunderstood, a moment where you said something and then watched the other person's face shift in a way you could not quite read, a silence that followed a sentence and left you wondering what the silence meant. Your brain flags all of these, and then at night, when the distractions of the day fall away, it returns to the open files, not to torture you, to finish what was left unfinished, but here is where the trap begins. The trap is that replaying a conversation feels like progress. It genuinely does. You are analyzing the situation. You are thinking it through. You are preparing better responses for next time. It feels like productive work. Yes, but research in psychology tells a different story. Replaying a conversation does not actually bring closure. It deepens the groove. Every time you run the mental replay, your brain reinforces the neural pathway connected to that moment. The memory does not fade from repetition. It gets clearer, more emotionally charged, more present, and the search for the right answer, the perfect response you should have given, that search has no endpoint. Because the conversation already happened, you cannot change it by thinking about it harder. But your brain does not fully accept that, and so the loop continues. There is something even deeper happening here that most people are never told. Replaying conversations is not just about the conversation. It is about what the conversation represents to the part of your brain that learned early on that connection is fragile. For many people who experience intense conversational rumination, the replay is not really about the words. It is about the relationship. It is about the question. Am I still okay with this person? Did I damage something that mattered to me? Am I going to lose this connection? Your brain, having learned in childhood that the wrong words can cost you closeness, treats adult conversations through the same lens. A casual comment to a friend becomes a potential rupture to examine. A text message that went unanswered feels like evidence of something that needs reviewing. A moment of awkwardness in a meeting replays for hours because some part of your nervous system experienced it as a social threat. And social threats to the human brain are not small things. We are wired for connection. Belonging is not a preference. It is a survival need, which means the part of your brain that monitors your social safety is always active. And when it perceives uncertainty, it sounds an alarm. The replay is that alarm. Now here is the turning point. The thing I want you to actually hear. The fact that your brain does this is not a flaw. It is evidence that you are someone who cares deeply about the people in your life. People who replay conversations are almost always the same people who are highly attuned to others. They notice emotional shifts in a room before anyone else does. They are careful with the people they love. They take responsibility for how they make others feel. These are not weaknesses. They are profound strengths. The issue is not the caring. The issue is that the alarm system that was built to protect the caring has become oversensitive. It is still scanning for threats that are no longer as dangerous as they once were. And understanding that changes something. Because when you know that the replay is your brain's protection system, not a sign that something terrible actually happened, you can begin to respond to it differently. Not by forcing the thoughts to stop. That almost never works, but by gently acknowledging what your brain is doing. When the replay starts, try this. Notice it without fighting it. Say to yourself quietly, "My brain is reviewing this because it is trying to keep me safe." Then ask, "Is there something real here that needs my attention, or is this a false alarm?" More often than not, it is a false alarm, and naming it as such begins to shift the pattern. There is also something important about closure that can help you here. If a conversation genuinely feels unresolved, sometimes the most effective thing you can do is create real closure rather than mental closure. A simple message, a brief follow-up, a clarifying sentence sent to the person. Not because you owe them an explanation, but because your nervous system needs a signal that the loop can close. Sometimes that is all it takes, and sometimes the conversation needs to stay open a little longer, because what it is pointing you toward is not a flaw in your communication. It is an unmet emotional need that is worth understanding. The replays often point toward the places where we most want to be understood, where we most want to feel safe in our connections, and where we carry the most hope about what our relationships could be. That is not something to manage away. That is something worth knowing about yourself. If you made it this far, I think you are someone who is genuinely trying to understand how your mind works. Not to fix yourself, but to know yourself better. That is what this channel is here for. If this video helped you see something about yourself that you did not have words for before, take a moment and let me know in the comments. There is nothing more valuable to me than knowing which of these ideas actually landed for you. And if you know someone who lies awake replaying conversations, share this with them. Sometimes the most useful thing we can offer someone is a way to understand what their mind is doing. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.